Kang Hyun-woo walked into the council chamber for the last time. His footsteps echoed in the massive hall where representatives from 47 species gathered to make decisions for the galaxy. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Ancient pillars held up walls covered in the histories of 1,000 worlds. He carried a single sheet of paper in his hand. The other representatives barely looked up as he approached the central podium. Veltar the Wise, an elderly Centauri with silver skin and 4 arms, was busy arguing with Prime Designate Kraz about mining rights. The insect-like Kliktari delegates clicked their mandibles in rapid conversation. The floating ethereal council members glowed softly as they discussed energy regulations. Hyun-woo cleared his throat. The massive chamber fell quiet. "I have a formal notice to submit to the council archives," he said in his calm voice. He had always spoken quietly, but somehow everyone could hear him perfectly. Veltar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Submit it to the clerks, human. We have important matters to discuss." Hyun-woo smiled. It was the same gentle smile he had worn for the past 10 years as Earth's representative. "This is an important matter. Humanity is formally withdrawing from all galactic affairs effective immediately." The chamber stayed quiet for a moment. Then Kraz laughed. The sound was like grinding metal. "Another human drama? What do you want this time? Better trade deals, more colonies?" "Nothing," Hyun-woo said. "We want nothing. We are simply going home." He placed the paper on the podium and walked away. Behind him, dozens of alien voices erupted in confusion, but he did not turn back. 3 floors below, Park So-jin was packing her belongings in the human embassy. She had lived on Nexus Prime for 8 years, working as a cultural liaison. Her small apartment was filled with gifts from alien friends and art from dozens of worlds. She carefully wrapped each piece and placed it in storage containers. Her assistant, a young Centauri named Keth, watched with wide eyes. "So-jin, you cannot really be leaving? The council needs you. Who will help us understand human poetry?" So-jin folded her favorite dress, the one she wore to formal dinners with ambassadors. "You will learn to understand it yourself, Keth. You are smart enough. But I do not think like humans think. Your minds work in ways we cannot follow. That is exactly why we must go." So-jin sealed the last container. "As long as we are here to explain everything, you will never learn to think new thoughts." Keth's silver face showed confusion. "I do not understand." So-jin hugged her young friend. "You will. Give it time." Across the space station, Dr. Im Nari was saying goodbye to her research team. For 15 years, she had studied how different species could live and work together. Her lab was filled with medical equipment designed to treat 47 different kinds of biology. Her research had saved millions of lives. "Doctor, you cannot abandon your work," pleaded Dr. Thys, a reptilian saurian who had been her research partner for a decade. "The Genetic Compatibility Project needs 7 more years of development." Nari looked around her lab one last time. "Then you have 7 years to develop it. I have taught you everything I know. The rest is up to you." "But what if we make mistakes? What if people die because we do not understand something?" Nari's expression grew sad. "Then you will learn from those mistakes, and you will get better. That is how we learned too. We were not born knowing how to heal people." Captain Lee Dong-min stood on the bridge of the battleship Unity, watching his mixed crew of humans and aliens work together for the final time. The Unity was the flagship of the Joint Defense Fleet, and Dong-min had commanded it for 12 years. Under his leadership, they had never lost a battle. His second-in-command, Commander Vex of the Hegemony, approached with a worried expression. "Captain, the crew wants to know if this is really happening. Are all humans really leaving the military?" Dong-min nodded. "Every last one of us. But sir, how will we fight without human tactics? Your people see battle in ways we cannot. You find solutions where we see only problems. You fought wars before we arrived, Vex. You can fight them after we leave." "That was different. We fought each other. Now we face threats that require unity, creativity, thinking beyond normal patterns. We need human minds. Dongmin placed a hand on Vex's shoulder. You have good minds too. You just stopped using them when we started thinking for you. In the lower levels of Nexus Prime, engineer Bei Suhyun was finishing his last shift in the central power core. For 20 years, he had maintained the systems that kept the massive space station running. He knew every circuit, every backup system, every small problem that could become big disasters. His replacement, a brilliant ethereal named Jin, floated beside him as they walked through the maintenance tunnels. Suhyun, I have studied all your manuals and reports, but there are so many small things you do that are not written down. How do you know when the power couplings need adjustment? How do you predict which systems will fail before the computers detect problems? Suhyun stopped at a junction where 20 different systems met. He pressed his ear to the wall and listened. You hear that? The slight vibration in pipe 7? It means the coolant pump is working too hard. In 3 days it will start to overheat. Jin's energy form pulsed in amazement. I detect no such vibration. Because you are listening with instruments. I am listening with experience. 20 years of fixing things teaches you to hear problems before they become emergencies. But how will I learn this without you? Suhyun smiled. By fixing things for 20 years. By making mistakes and learning from them. By paying attention to small details until they become second nature. Throughout the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human doctors left hospitals. Human engineers abandoned projects half-finished. Human negotiators walked away from peace talks that had lasted decades. They all did the same thing Hyunwoo had done in the council chamber. They smiled, said goodbye, and left. On the trade world of Mercantis, businessman Cho Min-ho closed his shipping company. His alien partners begged him to stay. His company had somehow made profitable routes that no one else could manage. He had found ways to trade between species that hated each other, creating prosperity where others saw only conflict. The secret, he told his hegemony business partner Merchant Lord Crix, was never really secret at all. We just listened to what people actually needed instead of what they said they wanted. But we can listen too. Then do it. Stop waiting for humans to translate everything for you. The strangest part was how calm the humans seemed. No anger, no threats, no demands for apologies. They acted like people finishing a long job that was finally complete. They packed their things, hugged their alien friends, and went home. Most aliens convinced themselves this was temporary. Humans were emotional creatures. They would get over whatever had upset them and come back. The galaxy had problems, yes, but problems could be solved. They had always been solved before. But as the last human transport ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving the galactic core forever, a few aliens began to feel something they had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Not fear of invasion or war or natural disaster. Fear of being alone with their own problems. Fear of making decisions without human advice. Fear of failing without human backup plans. In his private chambers, Veltar the Wise stared at the empty chair where Earth's representative had sat for 50 years. First Ambassador Chen, then Ambassador Martinez, then Ambassador Hyunwoo. Always quiet, always helpful, always there when needed. Now the chair was empty. For the first time in his 300-year life, Veltar wondered if the Council truly knew how to govern without human guidance. The thought terrified him more than any enemy fleet ever had. Outside his window, Nexus Prime hummed with activity. 46 species working together to rule the galaxy. It should have been enough. But somehow, the space where humans used to be felt bigger than all the aliens who remained. 3 months had passed since the last human ship left galactic space. The Council had quickly forgotten about the withdrawal, calling it a minor inconvenience. Important business continued as usual. Then the plague arrived. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee had been eating breakfast in her kitchen on Earth when the first emergency alert reached the galaxy. 7 worlds, all different species, all showing the same symptoms. A disease that changed faster than any medicine could stop it. She read the news on her tablet while drinking coffee, then deleted the message without responding. On Nexus Prime, the medical emergency team gathered in the main hospital. Researcher Thane led the meeting, his insectoid frame clicking nervously as he spoke to the mixed group of alien doctors. "The pathogen appears to be adaptive," Thane said, his translator making his clicks into words. "It changes its structure every few hours. Traditional vaccines become useless within days." Dr. Seth, a serpentine Nagan physician, coiled in frustration. Dr. Yoon had protocols for this exact situation. Her adaptive medicine research dealt with changing diseases. "Where are her files?" asked Dr. Morth, a crystalline being whose body chimed when he spoke. Thane's antennae drooped. "She took them. All human medical research was removed from our databases when they left. They said it was their intellectual property." The room fell silent. For decades, human medical knowledge had been freely shared with all species. Alien, doctors had grown used to consulting human expertise for difficult cases. They had stopped developing their own research methods, relying instead on human innovation to solve medical mysteries. "What do we do?" Dr. Seth asked. Thane looked at his notes. Everything he knew about adaptive diseases came from human research. Without that foundation, he felt like a student again, struggling with basic concepts. "We start over," he said quietly. "We learn what humans already knew." Meanwhile, in the military sector of Nexus Prime, war leader Zephon of the Valerian Empire was learning his own hard lessons. The proud warrior had taken command of the Joint Defense Fleet after Captain Lee Dongmin's departure. Zephon had 300 years of military experience and had never lost a battle. Until now. The pirate attack on the Corvin trade route should have been simple to stop. 12 ships against a full battle group. Zephon had positioned his forces exactly as military doctrine required. He had followed every rule in the tactical manual. The pirates had destroyed 8 merchant vessels and escaped without losing a single ship. Admiral Kress, a massive hegemony officer, reviewed the battle reports with growing confusion. The pirates used completely unpredictable tactics. They attacked from directions that made no strategic sense. Their movements followed no logical pattern. "Exactly," Zephon said bitterly. "They fought like humans." The realization hit both officers at the same time. For 50 years, human tactical advisors had been part of every major military operation. Not as commanders, but as consultants who suggested impossible strategies that somehow worked. They had taught the fleet to expect the unexpected, to think beyond normal military logic. Now, facing enemies who thought like humans, the alien commanders discovered they had no idea how to respond to chaos and creativity in battle. "Send a message to Admiral Shin Haiwan on Earth," Kress suggested. "Offer her command of the entire fleet." Zephon checked the communication logs. "I already tried. She sent back a recipe for Korean soup and said she hoped we would learn to cook for ourselves." In the diplomatic wing, young Counselor Nith was discovering his own problems. The Zentari had been trained by Ambassador Hong Min-ji for 5 years, learning human negotiation techniques. He thought he understood how humans achieved impossible peace agreements. He was wrong. The trade dispute between the Altarians and the Saurian Republic had been simmering for months. Both species claimed the same star system. Both had valid historical claims. Both refused to compromise. Nith tried every technique Hong Min-ji had taught him. He appealed to logic. He offered creative solutions. He suggested shared benefits. Nothing worked. "This is pointless," declared Ambassador Voss of the Altarian Empire. "Humans always found solutions to problems like this. Where are they now?" Ambassador Kreeth of the Saurian Republic hissed agreement. "Minji would have solved this in days. Why are we wasting time with her student?" Nith felt his confidence crumbling. He had watched Minji handle dozens of negotiations, but he had never understood the subtle ways she read body language, the careful timing of her suggestions, the instinct for knowing exactly what each species needed to hear. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we should contact Ambassador Minji for advice." Both alien ambassadors agreed immediately. Nith sent the message to Earth explaining the situation and requesting guidance. The reply came back in 6 words. "Figure it out. You can do this." Back on Earth, Professor Kim Tae-sung was planting tomatoes in his garden when his old research partner called. Dr. Venth, a gaseous being from the nebula colonies, appeared as a shimmering hologram among the vegetables. Tae-sung, my friend, the galaxy is falling apart without human knowledge. The plague spreads to new worlds every day. Surely you will help? Kim continued planting, his hands gentle with the small seedlings. I spent 40 years teaching xenobiology to alien students. I published every discovery. I created open databases that anyone could access. What more help do you need? But your intuition, your ability to see patterns we miss, your understanding of how different biologies interact, we cannot replicate this. Kim smiled sadly. Because you never tried. Every time you had a difficult question, you asked a human, instead of thinking for yourselves. We are not humans, we do not think as you think. Good. Think as you think. Find solutions we never imagined. Become better than us. The hologram flickered with frustration. People are dying, Tae-sung. People were dying before humans reached the stars. You saved them then. You can save them now. Kim ended the call and returned to his garden. The tomatoes needed attention, and unlike the galaxy's problems, they were his responsibility to solve. Captain Park Jun-ho had spent 30 years running cargo between hostile species. His shipping routes connected enemies and turned conflicts into profitable partnerships. He could deliver hegemony goods to Centauri colonies and return with Centauri art for hegemony museums. Other captains tried to copy his routes and ended up starting trade wars. Now he worked at his brother's fishing boat on the Korean coast, mending nets and watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. His former business partner, merchant captain, Zilax of the Traders Guild, had sent 17 messages begging him to return. The latest one was desperate. The Corvin-Altarian trade route has collapsed. Both sides blame each other for broken contracts. Only you knew how to make them trust each other. Please come back. Jun-ho deleted the message without reading it completely. He had tried to teach Zilks and others how to build trust between natural enemies, how to find common ground between species that had fought for centuries, how to turn fear into friendship through honest dealing and mutual respect. But they had never listened to the lessons. They only wanted the results. Chief Engineer Bae Soo-hyun was teaching his daughter to ride a bicycle in Seoul's Central Park when his replacement called. Engineer Jin's voice was panicked through the communicator. Soo-hyun, the power grid is showing fluctuations I have never seen. Systems are failing in patterns that make no sense. I need your help to understand what is happening. Soo-hyun steadied his daughter's bike as she wobbled down the path. Tell me what you see. Power drops in sections 7 through 12, but only during shift changes. Temperature spikes in the coolant systems, but only on days when both moons are visible. Equipment. Failures that follow no logical sequence, Soo-hyun smiled. Those are not equipment failures, Jin. Those are human solutions working exactly as designed. I do not understand. 20 years ago, the power grid was built by committee. Every species contributed designs that worked for their homeworlds, but conflicted with everyone else's technology. So humans created patch systems, invisible fixes that made incompatible technologies work together. Jin's energy form pulsed with worry. How do I maintain systems I cannot see? Start by looking for solutions that seem to make no sense. Humans always thought differently than other species. We fixed problems in ways that seemed wrong but worked perfectly. The call ended, and Soo-hyun turned back to his daughter. She was riding on her own now, laughing as the wind blew through her hair. She did not need his help anymore. In the council, Chamber Veltar was reading Hyunwoo's withdrawal notice for the 20th time. It was simple and polite. No complaints, no anger, no demands. Just a formal statement that humanity was ending its participation in galactic civilization. Why? He asked the empty air. What did we do wrong? Prime Designate Kraz approached, his mechanical limbs whirring softly. Perhaps we should ask them. I tried. Every human I contacted gave the same response. They wished us well and told us to solve our own problems. Arrogant primitives, Kraz muttered. We ruled the galaxy for millennia before they crawled out of their caves, but Veltar was older and wiser than most. He had lived through the time before humans joined the council. He remembered how different things had been. Slower decisions, more conflicts, solutions that took decades instead of months. 1 year had passed since humanity left the galaxy to itself. The problems that had seemed manageable in the first months had grown into disasters that threatened entire civilizations. General Yang Kyung-soo was feeding chickens on his small farm outside Seoul when the holographic news showed images from the Battle of Crimson Nebula. The combined galactic fleet, once the most powerful military force in known space, had suffered its worst defeat in 3 centuries. The enemy was not some advanced alien empire or terrifying space monsters. It was a ragtag collection of pirate clans using stolen ships and outdated weapons. They should have been crushed within hours. Instead, they had destroyed 2/3 of the galactic fleet and captured enough ships to double their own numbers. Yang scattered grain for his chickens and watched them peck at the ground. Simple creatures with simple needs, unlike the galaxy, which had somehow forgotten how to handle simple problems. War leader Zephon appeared on the news, his proud Valerian face showing defeat for the first time in his long military career. The enemy employed tactics that defied all military logic, he reported to the council. They attacked our strongest positions while ignoring obvious advantages. They made decisions that should have led to their destruction but somehow resulted in our defeat. Yang turned off the news. He remembered teaching those same illogical tactics to alien officers during joint training exercises. Human military doctrine was based on a simple idea. When the enemy expects you to do the smart thing, do the crazy thing instead. But aliens thought in patterns. They followed rules and traditions. They could not break their own logic even when breaking logic was the key to victory. His former aide, Commander Park Sung-ho, had sent dozens of messages begging for advice. Yang had stopped reading them weeks ago. Learning to think creatively in battle was not something that could be explained in messages. It required years of practice, failure, and instinctive understanding of chaos. The aliens would have to learn through defeat, just as humans had learned centuries ago. Dr. Song Hya-young was teaching at a medical school in Daegu. When she heard about the latest plague developments, 17 worlds were now infected, and the disease had evolved into 43 different strains. Alien medical teams could not keep up with the changes. Her replacement, Dr. Thane, had managed to create a vaccine for one strain, but by the time it was distributed, the disease had changed again, making the vaccine useless. Traditional alien medicine worked through careful analysis and logical treatment plans, but the Corvin plague did not follow logical patterns. Dr. Song had tried to teach alien doctors about adaptive medicine during her years in the galaxy. She had explained that some diseases were like living opponents that could think and change. Fighting them required creativity, instinct, and the ability to change strategies faster than the disease could adapt. The alien doctors had nodded politely and continued using their traditional methods. They preferred diseases that followed predictable patterns and could be defeated through scientific analysis. Now the plague was outsmarting them at every turn, and millions were dying while the medical teams tried to analyze what could not be analyzed. Song received daily messages from alien doctors begging for help. She read each one carefully, then filed them away without responding. Helping them now would only delay the hard lesson they needed to learn. Some problems could not be solved through pure intelligence. They required wisdom, instinct, and the courage to try solutions that might not work. Captain Park Jun-ho was repairing his fishing nets when the trade crisis reached Earth's news networks. The Galactic Trade Network had collapsed completely. Species that had traded peacefully for decades were now imposing sanctions and blockades against each other. The problem had started small, a dispute over shipping prices between the Zentari and the hegemony. Both sides had valid points, but neither would compromise. Without human mediators to find creative solutions, the argument had escalated into economic warfare. Then other species had taken sides. Old grudges and ancient fears had resurfaced. Trade agreements that had lasted generations were being canceled over minor disagreements. Merchant Captain Zilix had sent increasingly desperate messages. Junho, the entire Outer Rim trade network has shut down. Nobody trusts anyone else. Species that have been partners for decades are treating each other like enemies. How do we rebuild trust? Junho mended a small tear in his net with careful stitches. Trust was like a fishing net. It took time to build, but it could be destroyed in moments. And like a net, it had to be repaired one connection at a time. But that was something aliens would have to learn through their own mistakes. Trust could not be taught through lectures or manuals. It came from taking risks, being honest even when it hurt, and proving yourself reliable through actions instead of words. The fishing was good today. Simple, honest work that fed his family and his neighbors. Unlike galactic trade, which had become too complex for anyone to understand completely, Chief Engineer Bae Soo-hyun was teaching his son to repair a bicycle when the power failures began spreading across the galaxy. First Nexus Prime, then the core worlds, then the industrial centers that powered galactic civilization. Engineer Jin had become desperate in his messages. Soo-hyun, entire sectors are going dark. We have teams of engineers from every species, working around the clock, but we cannot understand how these systems were designed to function together. Soo-hyun showed his son how to adjust the bicycle brakes. See how these two cables work together? Pull one too tight, and the other becomes loose. Everything must be balanced. I understand, Father. The galaxy's power systems are like this bicycle. Humans spent 50 years learning how to balance everything so it would work smoothly. Now the aliens are pulling too hard on some cables and ignoring others. His son nodded seriously. Will they figure it out? Eventually. But first they will break many things and make many mistakes. The latest message from Jin was almost incoherent with panic. Half of the communication network is down. We cannot even coordinate repair efforts between different worlds. How did humans make it look so easy? Soo-hyun did not reply. Engineering was not about making things look easy. It was about making things work even when they seemed impossible. Humans had learned that through centuries of trial and error, building knowledge through generations of mistakes and improvements. The aliens had skipped that learning process by depending on human expertise. Now they would have to go through it themselves, one failure at a time. Professor Lim Sang-woo was reading bedtime stories to his granddaughter when the educational crisis reports reached Earth. Universities across the galaxy were shutting down advanced programs because human professors had taken all the impossible knowledge with them. Interspecies psychology, adaptive engineering, creative problem-solving, intuitive medicine. These fields had been dominated by human professors who made difficult concepts seem simple. Now alien students were discovering that their own professors could not explain things the same way. Grandfather, his granddaughter asked, why are the space people so confused without us? Lim thought carefully about his answer. Imagine if someone always did your homework for you. You would get good grades, but you would never learn how to solve problems yourself. When that person left, you would not know how to do the work. That would be scary. Yes, and that is why sometimes the kindest thing to do is let people struggle a little bit. The girl nodded and returned to her picture book. Simple stories with clear lessons. Unlike the galaxy, which had forgotten how to learn from its own mistakes. In the council chamber, the emergency session had been going on for 16 hours. Representatives from 46 species argued about solutions to problems that seemed to multiply faster than they could be addressed. The medical crisis requires immediate human assistance, declared Ambassador Voss of the Altarian Empire. We must offer them whatever they want to return. The military situation is more urgent, war leader Zephon insisted. Pirates control a third of our trade routes. Without human tactical expertise, we cannot restore order. Infrastructure collapse threatens everything. Engineer Jin's hologram flickered with exhaustion. If the power grids fail completely, entire worlds will become uninhabitable. Veltar listened to the arguments with growing despair. Every speaker had the same solution. Bring the humans back. But none of them addressed the real question. Why had they needed humans in the first place? Prime designate. Kraz finally spoke the truth that everyone was avoiding. We have become weak. For 50 years, we let humans solve our problems instead of learning to solve them ourselves. Now we are like children without parents. The chamber fell silent. The comparison was painful, but accurate. What do you suggest? Veltar asked. We contact Earth and offer them complete control of the galaxy. If we cannot function without human guidance, then perhaps humans should rule directly. Speaker Prime Yith, an ancient being whose species had ruled the galaxy long before humans existed, rose from her floating platform. I have lived for 2,000 years. I have seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. Never have I witnessed a species become so dependent on another that they could not survive without them. She gestured to the empty human section of the chamber. 2 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galactic civilization was dying. The Corvin Plague had killed 30 million beings across 28 worlds. Military forces could not protect their own supply lines. Infrastructure systems failed faster than they could be repaired. The proud species that had ruled the stars for millennia were facing their first taste of helplessness. Veltar the Wise stood in his private office, staring at reports that all said the same thing. Everything was getting worse. His silver skin had dulled with age and stress. His forearms moved slowly as he sorted through crisis after crisis. We must contact Earth again, he told his aide. Offer them anything they want. Complete control of the council. All our resources, whatever price they demand. Sir, his aide said carefully, we have sent 47 official requests. Earth's government sends the same response every time. Thank you for your message. We wish you well in solving your challenges. Veltar threw the reports across his desk in frustration. How can they be so calm while the galaxy burns? His aide hesitated before speaking. Perhaps they expected this to happen. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Had humans known that their departure would cause such chaos? Had they planned this disaster? Prepare a ship, Veltar said suddenly. I will go to Earth myself. Speaker Prime Yith had the same idea. The ancient being had lived through the rise and fall of civilizations, but she had never seen anything like the current crisis. She assembled a small delegation of the galaxy's most respected leaders and headed for the Sol system. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, 2 more worlds fell to the plague. The trade networks collapsed completely, and the military lost another major battle to pirates who fought like humans, but thought like criminals. Earth's orbital defense systems detected the alien ships while they were still light years away. Ambassador Ro Yunji, who had once managed cultural exchanges on 15 different worlds, was now teaching elementary school in Busan. She received the official contact request while helping her students with math homework. Tell them they can land at the old diplomatic facility in Geneva, she told Earth's government. I suppose someone should meet with them. The delegation landed on a rainy Tuesday morning. Veltar, Speaker Yith, War Leader Zephon, and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Thane stepped out of their ship into air that smelled of pine trees and fresh rain. Earth's gravity felt strange after years on space stations. The sky was an impossible blue color that no other world could match. Yunji met them at the landing pad. She wore simple clothes and carried an umbrella. The aliens remembered her as a polished diplomat in formal attire. Now she looked like any other human teacher. Welcome to Earth, she said with the same warm smile they remembered. Would you like some coffee? It's going to be a long conversation. They gathered in a small conference room that had once hosted negotiations between star empires. Now it served as a meeting space for local community groups. The chairs were too small for War Leader Zephon, and Veltar had to fold 2 of his arms awkwardly. The galaxy is dying, Veltar said without preamble. Billions have died from the plague. Our military cannot maintain order. Our infrastructure is failing. We need human help. Yunji poured coffee from a simple pot. I'm sorry to hear about your troubles. How can we help? The aliens looked at each other in confusion. They had expected anger, demands, or negotiations. Instead, they found a schoolteacher offering coffee and sympathy. Return to the galaxy, Dr. Thane clicked urgently. We will give you anything you want. Full membership in the council leadership. Control of entire star systems. Just help us solve these crises. We don't want to control anything, Yunji said gently. We tried to help you learn to solve problems yourselves. You preferred having us solve them for you. Speaker Yith's ancient voice trembled with desperation. We acknowledge our mistake. We became too dependent on human expertise. But surely you will not let civilizations die because of our pride. Yunji sipped her coffee and looked out the window at children playing in the rain. Tell me about your medical research. What? Dr. Thane was confused by the change of subject. What? Have you learned about the plague in the past year? Thane's insectoid form clicked nervously. We have tried hundreds of treatments. None work for more than a few weeks. The disease adapts too quickly for traditional medicine. So you have learned that traditional medicine is not enough? Yes, but what else have you learned? Thane thought carefully. That the disease seems to respond to our attempts to treat it. That it changes its behavior based on what we do to fight it. Excellent. What else? That different species' immune systems react differently to the same strain. That treatments must be adapted for each species individually. Yunji smiled. You have learned more in 1 year than many medical teams learn in decades. You are becoming better doctors. But people are dying while we learn. People die while experienced doctors learn too. The difference is that now you are learning to solve problems instead of learning to depend on others to solve them for you. War leader Zephon interrupted angrily. Your people could end this crisis in months. Instead, you sit on your comfortable world while we struggle like children. Yunji turned to him calmly. Tell me about your last battle. Zephon's warrior pride made him straighten in his chair. The pirates used impossible tactics. They attacked our formation from inside, used our own ships against us, turned our strengths into weaknesses. How? They disguised their ships as medical vessels. When we moved to protect them, they revealed weapons and fired on us from point-blank range. And what did you learn from this? Zephon was quiet for a long moment. That enemies do not always follow the rules of honorable combat. What else? That protecting everyone makes it harder to protect anyone. That sometimes mercy can be a tactical weakness. And? Zephon's voice grew quieter. That humans were right when they told us to expect the unexpected in battle. Yunji nodded. You are learning to think like a warrior instead of thinking like a rule follower. That will make you stronger. But we are losing battles while we learn. Yes, that is how learning works. Humans lost many battles before we learned to win them. Speaker Yith finally asked the question that had haunted the galaxy for 2 years. Why did you really leave? Not the official reason, the real reason. Yunji was quiet for a long time. Outside, the rain had stopped and sunlight was breaking through the clouds. Do you have children? She asked. I have offspring, yes. When your offspring are young, you help them with everything. You feed them, protect them, solve their problems. But as they grow older, you help them less. Not because you love them less, but because you love them enough to let them become strong. She gestured toward the window, where human children were playing in puddles without adult supervision. 50 years ago, the galaxy was like a young child. You needed help learning to cooperate, to solve new kinds of problems, to think beyond your old patterns. We were happy to help. Then why leave now? Because you stopped growing. Every time you faced a new challenge, you asked humans to solve it instead of learning to solve it yourselves. You became dependent on us in ways that made you weaker, not stronger. Veltar's 4 arms gestured in frustration. But cooperation is strength. Working together is better than working alone. Working together is wonderful, Yunji agreed. But depending on others to think for you is not cooperation. It is weakness disguised as partnership. Dr. Thane clicked anxiously. So you abandon us to fail? Let us make every mistake you could prevent? We let you learn to succeed. There is a difference. She pulled out a small device and showed them, a holographic display. It showed Earth's solar system busy with human activity. Ships moved between planets. Space stations orbited every world. Massive construction projects dotted the asteroid belt. We did not stop growing when we left you, Yunji explained. We have been building, exploring, learning. Our technology has advanced more in the past 2 years than in the previous 20. The aliens stared at the display in shock. They had assumed humans would stagnate without galactic resources and knowledge. How? Speaker Yith whispered. By solving our own problems instead of solving yours. War leader Zephon leaned forward aggressively. You could have shared this advancement with us. Instead, you hoard it while we suffer. Yunji met his gaze calmly. We tried to share knowledge for 50 years. You took our solutions but ignored our methods. You wanted fish instead of learning to fish. She stood up and walked to the window. The alien delegation followed her gaze to the peaceful Earth landscape. We realized something important 2 years ago. As long as we were there to solve your problems, you would never learn to solve them yourselves. We were not helping you become stronger. We were helping you stay weak. So you left us to die? Veltar's voice carried pain and accusation. We left you to live. Really live. By facing challenges and growing stronger through overcoming them. She turned back to face them. Every species in this room ruled the galaxy successfully before humans arrived. You had the strength and wisdom to build great civilizations. You still have that strength. You just forgot how to use it. The conference. Room fell silent except for the sound of rain beginning again outside. Will you return if we prove we can solve our own problems? 5 years had passed since humanity quietly left the galactic community. The Great Crisis had reached its peak and was slowly, painfully, beginning to resolve itself. Director Han Bo-Ra was working in her vegetable garden when the final delegation arrived on Earth. She had once coordinated humanitarian aid for refugee crises across 17 star systems. Now she grew tomatoes and taught sustainable farming to her neighbors. The aliens who stepped out of the diplomatic shuttle were different from those who had come before. Veltar the Wise looked older, but stronger. His silver skin showed new lines of experience, and his forearms moved with confident purpose. War leader Zephon carried himself like a warrior who had learned hard lessons and grown wiser from them. But it was Dr. Thane who surprised her most. The insectoid researcher's movements were more fluid, less rigid. His antennae moved with what could only be described as confidence. Director Han, Veltar said formally, we come not as supplicants, but as students. Bo-Ra brushed soil from her hands and smiled. Would you like to see my garden? We can talk while I work. They walked among rows of vegetables and flowering plants. The aliens noticed that everything grew in careful patterns, each plant supporting the others in ways that were not immediately obvious. The plague, Dr. Thane said suddenly. We stopped it. Bo-Ra continued weeding around the tomato plants. How? By accepting that we could not cure it. Instead, we learned to live with it. We developed treatments that work with the disease's changes instead of fighting against them. We turned adaptation into partnership. The idea came from studying Earth's ecosystems, he continued. Humans never tried to eliminate all diseases. You learned to coexist with them to build immunity through controlled exposure. Bo-Ra nodded approvingly. Natural solutions for natural problems. What else have you learned? War leader Zephon stepped forward. That honor without flexibility is weakness. The pirates taught us this lesson through many defeats. Tell me. We kept losing because we fought with pride instead of wisdom. We wanted to prove our strength through traditional tactics. But strength is not about following rules. It is about achieving victory through whatever methods work. Zephon's voice carried the weight of hard experience. We learned to think like humans think in battle, not to abandon our own culture but to expand it, to include creativity alongside courage. And now the pirates flee from us, not because we are stronger, but because we are unpredictable. We have learned to fight like humans fight, with minds as well as weapons. They reached the center of the garden where a small pond reflected the afternoon sky. Fish swam in lazy circles, and water plants grew in natural harmony. Speaker Yeath's ancient voice carried across the water. "We have come to understand something important. You did not leave because you were angry with us." "No," Bora agreed. "We were not angry. You left because you loved us enough to let us fail." The words hung in the air like a revelation. After 5 years of crisis and struggle, the galaxy's leaders finally understood humanity's true motivation. "Every parent faces this choice," Bora said gently. "Hold your children's hands forever or teach them to walk alone. We chose to let you walk." Engineer Jin appeared as a holographic projection, his energy form more stable than it had been in years. "The infrastructure crisis taught us that there is no shame in building things badly at first. Human engineering looked perfect because you had practiced being imperfect for centuries." "We built terrible things," Bora laughed. "Our first space stations leaked air. Our early computers caught fire. Our medical devices killed more patients than they saved. But you learned from each failure." "Exactly. And now you are learning the same way." Counselor Nith had grown into his role as a diplomat. His voice carried new confidence as he spoke. "The trade wars ended when we stopped trying to find perfect solutions. We learned that good enough solutions that everyone accepts work better than perfect solutions that no one trusts." "Human diplomacy was never about being perfect," Bora agreed. "It was about being honest, even when honesty was uncomfortable." Dr. Choi Young-min emerged from his house carrying a tray of tea. He had been Earth's leading expert on artificial intelligence before becoming a simple computer teacher. He served tea to each visitor with the same precision he had once used to program thinking machines. "The galaxy's computers work better now," he observed. "Less efficient but more reliable. We stopped depending on systems we did not understand," Jin explained. "Human-designed programs were so advanced that we could not maintain them properly. Now we build simpler systems that we can fix ourselves. Sometimes the best solution is the one you can understand completely." Choi agreed. As the sun began to set, the delegation gathered around a simple wooden table in Bora's backyard. The conversation had lasted all day, but none of the aliens seemed eager to leave. "We have learned to survive without you," Veltar said finally. "But we have come to ask if you will teach us to thrive." Bora looked at each face around the table. These were not the same desperate beings who had begged for help 3 years ago. They had been broken by crisis and rebuilt by their own efforts. They were stronger now, more confident, more capable. "What kind of teaching do you want?" "Not solutions," Dr. Thane said quickly. "Methods, ways of thinking, approaches to problems." "Not leadership," added war leader Zephon. "Partnership, working together as equals instead of teachers and students." "Not dependence," finished Speaker Yith. "Independence that comes from understanding instead of ignorance." Bora smiled. For the first time in 5 years, she felt hope for the galaxy's future. "There is a human saying," she said. "Give a being a fish and they eat for a day. Teach a being to fish and they eat for a lifetime. We tried to teach you to fish for 50 years, but you kept asking for more fish instead." "We understand now," Veltar said. "We want to learn to fish." Professor Lim Sang-woo had arrived during the afternoon, having traveled from his university where he taught philosophy to young humans. He listened to the conversation with the quiet attention of someone who had spent decades helping others learn. "Teaching is not the same as helping," he said carefully. "A teacher's job is not to make things easy. A teacher's job is to make students stronger." "We accept this," Speaker Yith said. "We have learned that easy solutions create weak minds." "Then we can begin," Bora said. "But there are conditions." The aliens tensed, expecting demands or prices to be paid. "First, this is a partnership between equals. Humans will not return to the galaxy as problem solvers or crisis managers. We work together or we work separately." "Agreed," Veltar said immediately. "Second, you must continue solving your own problems even while we work together. We will not become a crutch again." "Understood." "Third, when other species ask you to solve their problems, you must teach them to solve the problems themselves. No more quick fixes, no more easy answers. Dr. Thane clicked thoughtfully. We become teachers instead of helpers. Exactly. The delegation spent 3 more days on Earth, visiting human schools and research centers. They watched human children learn through trial and error, making mistakes and trying again. They saw human scientists debate and argue, and eventually find new solutions through disagreement and collaboration. Most importantly, they saw that humans were still growing, still learning, still failing at new things, and getting better through practice. On their last day, Master Engineer Oh Jin Young showed them around Seoul National University's engineering department. Students worked on projects that failed spectacularly, then rebuilt them with improvements. Professors asked questions, instead of giving answers. Learning happened through struggle, not through easy instruction. When will you return to the galaxy? Veltar asked as they prepared to leave. Oh Jin Young smiled. We never really left. We just stopped doing your work for you. What do you mean? Human exploration ships have been mapping new star systems. Throughout your crisis, human research stations have been developing technologies you cannot imagine. Human colonies have been growing in ways that might surprise you. The aliens looked at each other in shock. They had assumed humanity was isolated, on Earth cut off from galactic civilization. We were not hiding, Oh Jin Young continued. We were building our own civilization while you learned to rebuild yours. Will our civilizations work together again? That depends on whether you still need us to think for you, or whether you are ready to think alongside us. The delegation returned to the galaxy with new understanding. The Council voted unanimously to accept humanity's conditions for renewed cooperation. Not because they were desperate, though some still were, but because they finally understood the difference between partnership and dependence. 6 months later, the first joint human-alien research station was built in neutral space. It was designed by alien engineers using principles they had learned through years of failure and improvement. Human advisors contributed ideas but did not control the project. The station was not as advanced as the old human-designed facilities, but it was built by beings who understood every component, every system, every backup procedure. When problems arose, as they always did, the alien engineers could fix them without calling for help. In the main laboratory, Dr. Song Hai-young worked alongside Dr. Thane on a new research project.